to my house.
Hi, everybody. It's Jamin with Keene Point of View, the best intersection for politics, gay issues, and Christianity ever, with a new podcast episode. Welcome to all new listeners. Welcome to everybody who's coming back. Thank you all for sticking with me every week. And to the new people, thank you for sticking with me every week in the future, like any good American would do. This week, I am so happy to have my first co-host. We're friends. We met when I lived in DC, and I would like you all to welcome to the podcast my co-host for today for this episode, Blotitious. Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yes, I'm excited. You're my first co-host, and I want to do my show like, you know how people have guests on there. I want, as much as possible, my guests to actually help co-host an episode. But what y'all may not know is that before this podcast and before Nikki had her podcast, which is called
Skeevy Delicious,
we had a podcast called The Awesome People Show that never made it to air. So we recorded 3 episodes and it never made it to air. So maybe one day on one of our podcasts, we'll throw it up as like, look where we came from. Let's get started. So, Nikki, tell me a little bit about yourself, what you would want people to know, what you're into, who you are, and I will ask follow-up questions as we go along. And also, what do you want to plug? In the spirit of RuPaul, at the RuPaul Drag Race finales, like, what do you want to plug? Yeah.
Well, I am a visual artist and I live in Washington, D.C. And I create abstract and expressionist pieces based off of the African diaspora. And I would like to plug my art. You can purchase it directly from me. You can go to my Instagram. It is Indigo Gloves, INDIGOGLOVES. And society6.com/Blotitious.
Cool. So Indigo Gloves on Instagram, and what was the site again?
Society, and then the number 6.com/Blotitious. BLOWTICIOUS.
Okay, great. My first question is, how did you come up with your name for social media?
Well, the story actually isn't that interesting. I really, really love the Flavor in Your Ear remix by Craig Mack and LL Cool J and Puff Daddy and all them. And there is a verse where LL Cool J literally says the word blotitious. And the word just kind of stuck out to me. And I know that he said on a podcast, he actually was on Combat Jack, may he rest in heaven. He was on Combat Jack's podcast and said that blotitious just meant like a cool chick, like a cool roundaway chick. And that's me all day. Like, I'm cool. I'm from Roundaway. I'm a chick. So I'm like, this is perfect. And it just kind of, once I changed my Twitter name to that, it kind of stuck and it almost like became an identity in a way. So that's just who I am now. I'm blotitious.
Cool. So my next question is, what's an interesting fact about your history that you would be comfortable sharing? Anything you've overcome, or just something that's unusual for most people living their life that is cool and unique about you, or that you made cool and unique?
Well, let me think. A cool, unique thing about me. I actually wrote a book when I was 8 years old, and it got published, and it was called My Teacher is a Rose. It's not in print anymore. It's like not available, but
Oh, I
I
didn't know
wrote,
that.
yeah, unfortunately. And I've actually tried to Google it to like find it, but I would have to reach out to my third grade teacher to find out if there's a way I can like get it reprinted or something. But I wrote it for my third grade teacher, whose name was Miss Sherman. She was the most selfless woman I had ever met outside of like the home. Like, you know, your family is generous and giving and loving and all of that. And I had never experienced that in an educator before. This woman would go out of her way. It was the first time I noticed a teacher doing things outside of their job description. And I mean, as an adult, we all know that teachers spend a lot of their own money on supplies and things like that. But back then, you know, I'm 8 and I don't know any better. And I'm watching my teacher take her own money and purchase clothing for kids who didn't have, would have like these little clothes picks. And she would be like, oh, I have this stuff lying around. We knew she didn't have it lying around. She went and bought it.
Right.
Because how you got a whole bunch of clothes for 8-year-olds just lying around? Lady, we ain't stupid. But it was really sweet that she did that, and she did it in a way that made kids who were less fortunate not feel uncomfortable about taking clothes from her. She would give out soap, she would give out toiletries and stuff like that. And it was just really sweet of her. And as I got to know her over the school year, I'm just like, this lady just has all these layers and she's so sweet and she's just wonderful. And I wrote this little book about her and how much I appreciated, you know, her work just as a teacher, and how teachers weren't just teaching, they were also like family. And I mean, she bawled and she cried and stuff. And like over the summer, she got the book published. It was so sweet. And yeah, so that was something, because after, not long after that, I kind of, you know, hit a rebellious streak and I wasn't like a good little girl anymore. So I always think back to stuff like that to remind myself that, you know, I was once a shining example of love at one point.
So my next question is, are you going to stop being on the streak that you hit at 12, or I'm kidding.
Don't say this shade at the table. Ooh, shade at the table. I am love. Bonafide. Don't do this.
Okay, my next question is, it's a story that you told me, and I hope you're comfortable with sharing, but what is the story of the credit card company that called you a slur and the hookup that you got from it?
So, a credit card company that will not be named on your show. I don't want to cause no stuff. But so there's a credit card company that, and they are a major credit card company, like not a little store card, not no, you know, whatever. It's like a big company, and they, you know, made a comment about my race based on how I talk.
You can say the
And
word, what they called you. You can say the word, what they called you, if you want.
I don't want to say the word.
Okay, all right.
You can say the word.
All right, they called her a nigger. Go ahead.
I hate that, but I don't like it with the ER. It makes me uncomfortable.
Well, that's how they said it. I sound like Drake in that video, like years ago, where he was like, "Yeah, niggers." I'm like, dude, no, like, no.
Yes.
Okay,
That's
go ahead.
yes. The lady on the phone called me a nigger, and I was like, "Bitch, what?" And I mean, I was really taken aback because I felt like I'm not on the phone with like the dollar store. I'm on the phone with like a major credit card company, and I don't understand what the problem is here.
Right.
I don't understand why you talking to me like this. And I understand, like, I try to be gentle with customer service people because people are so rude to them sometimes. And I felt like I was patient with her. There was like a discrepancy, and I just was, you know, kind of trying to figure out what was going on. And she called me, you know, she called me a nigger. And I was like, no, ma'am, no, not here. Um, So I turned into that customer. I was told by Apple Care. I want to talk to every supervisor. I want to talk to every manager. I want to talk to everybody who's above you. And they gave me no interest for life. No interest. None. No interest. Listen, and this was a card that is known for having outrageous interest rates too, because it's a harder card to get. But I was so excited. I was like, what? Let's do it. Really, in my heart of hearts, I should have just been like, cancel my account and I don't want to deal with y'all at all. But I'll take that no interest, shawty, all day. Give it to me. That was the time a white lady on the phone called me an N-word.
That is awesome. I wish I had a similar story because I could use 0% interest on my credit card. So,
Wow.
all right. Is there anything else you would like to share that people may want to know about you, aside from that you really don't hate men, as people think you do on Twitter? But
Oh, child. Everybody thinks I hate men. I love men. I do. I love men so much. I just want them to do better. Something about me that I wish people knew is that they do not know me.
Okay.
A lot of people make assumptions about me on social media based on things that they might hear about me. But I always implore people to, consider the source. Somebody who doesn't like me isn't going to tell you nice things about me. Somebody who doesn't agree with me is not going to tell you nice things about me. And I'm an open book. If you ever feel like you want to know something or you feel like you might be entitled to something, by all means, ask away. It doesn't mean I'm going to answer you, but I'll surely, consider the question prior to deciding whether or not I want to answer. But I don't think it's fair that a lot of people just decide I'm like this man hating, whatever. There was, late last year, November 10th, there was an issue on social media with like a sexual assault, like
yes.
that whole thing came out about, people being sexually assaulted or harassed at like Bourbon Ball or Twitter fused events, things of that nature. And my name was wrapped up in it because, some of the perpetrators were people who I used to spend a lot of time with, people I used to hang around, people I used to call friends. And I mean, even to this day, like last week, somebody said that I was a rape accomplice. And I was like, what?
What?
And people continue to say this and they'll harass me about it. And I went on like a widespread blocking spree because I'm not about to deal with that. Nobody's looking for the facts. Nobody's asking questions. They're just saying words that are hurtful and harmful and untrue just because. And it's, I get the mob mentality. You're on a witch hunt or whatever, and everybody wants to burn me at the stake, but I don't have to deal with it. And I'm not going to deal with it. And a lot of the people who are being the messiest about it are all people who don't know me. And they're all people who are generally very anonymous on Twitter. And I'm pretty sure that that's for a reason. Like, you're really anonymous for a reason. So I don't pay them no mind.
Cool. I did like what you said before about hypervisibility not necessarily equating to fame, and that like hypervisibility doesn't mean that it gets you anything in the end. It's just that you're hypervisible, and some things you can be influential on, but it's not like the same platform as like um, Beyonce or Jay-Z doing something.
It's hard because when you're hypervisible, there are people who hold you to like a responsibility to the public, which is kind of strange because I don't owe anybody anything. But also, like, when you're hyper visible, some people will treat you like you're supposed to behave a certain way. And that's also not true. I can be my authentic self, and it doesn't mean that I'm, disrespecting other people. I'm just being me. But I also understand that people are always watching and looking and judging and waiting to say something about what I do. And that's fine. As long as what you're doing isn't directly harming me in some way, you can say whatever you want to say. And me being hypervisible was never something I was striving for. I didn't want that. It just one day people started, I started racking up followers, and I started getting a lot of retweets, and some of my tweets would go viral, and I'd end up on like, BuzzFeed or MTV or, MSNBC or something like that. And I'm just like, why is this happening? Leave me alone. But I mean, it happened for a reason. And I've actually, being hypervisible has been lucrative for me. But again, I'm not famous. I'm nobody. I'm just a regular woman. I pay my rent on the 5th of the month like everybody else. And yeah, I mean, I just try to do me the best way I can, and try to, help people if I can. And if I need to just be quiet and let people speak their truth and I just quietly retweet, I'll do that too. But I don't like that people behave like just because you're hyper visible or you're popular or known or whatever you want to call it, that means you owe them something or you owe them some sort of explanation. And a lot of people do that. They'll, ask me on Facebook or ask me on like Twitter, like, you need to explain this. No, I don't. I really don't.
Right.
If my daddy asks me to explain something, by all means, I'll give him every word he wants. But these are strangers in my phone.
Right.
I don't have to answer nothing.
Right.
And sometimes I will. Like, for instance, I said something about Pride Month, and I don't remember what it was, but it was something that could have been easily misconstrued. And there was a guy who asked me about it. And I don't know where he came from. He just came out the blue. And he just was like, I feel like you need to clarify this. And he explained why he wanted me to clarify it. And I understood where he was coming from. And I did, because I don't, if somebody feels like something I'm saying is harmful to their community, by all means, let me clarify it so that you don't feel like I'm coming for your neck. I don't want nobody to feel that way, because I'm not that type of woman. I'm not a mean girl. I don't want to bully you. I don't want to hurt your feelings. So if I'm doing something wrong, by all means, let me know. And he took what I said. He said, okay, I get what you're saying. And he went on about his business. He also didn't know that I identified as a queer woman. He had no idea, because I don't talk about my sexuality on Twitter, because I don't feel like it needs to be a discussion. I don't feel like it's any of anyone else's business.
Oh, well, we're gonna discuss this. You queer? No, I'm kidding.
Gosh. Yes. But yeah, I don't, it's not something that I talk about on Twitter. And because I'm cisgender and I am hetero passing, because I do date men. And I present as just your run of the mill, cis het woman. So, I try not to take up a lot of space in that way, to make room for people who are, for lack of a better term, just gay as hell and just want to, say what they want to say. Like, by all means, sis, go ahead, do your thing.
Right.
I don't want to take up that space, because I don't need to. I feel like I take up enough space in other places.
Right.
If that makes sense.
No, it does to me. Yeah. I like when people ask you to explain something that you've done. I've had a situation where I wrote a blog post years ago on my site, and it was about my experiences dating a bisexual man, and actually two of them. And I wrote about those experiences, and I was saying, like, speaking from a place of pain about how much I was hurt, how much I was used, how much I was just felt like I was just used for an experiment or experimentation. and that they never really wanted me. They just wanted, the story. But they used my emotions and were not clear with what they wanted up front to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote that story and I wrote it from a place of pain. So I just like lashed out at the guys who were doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But I eventually had a mindset of like, well, all bi men are like this. And so I was like, oh, bisexual people are confused. They need to make their mind stop using people. And I just blanketed everyone.
Yeah.
So I just want to give a shout out to the people who were in my mentions and trying to talk me through this and not just like it. Like somebody who writes for HuffPost, well, anybody can write for, but anyway, pretty popular on HuffPost. He like he started like sharing my blog posts and everyone started like ramming, all this stuff on my Twitter
Mhm.
feed. It was like I've been flamed twice on Twitter. It's not fun. So and I actually had to delete the post from my site and write another post explaining what happened. But I just want to give a shout out to the people who were calmly talking to me, which was about 3 people, just saying like, here's why it's offensive. Here's what you're not understanding about bisexuals and blah, blah, blah. So I learned, and I said I was at the time, I'm like, I'm still learning. I said I'm still not 100% cool with bi people. Back then I wasn't, but I understand more now. But I also want to shout out Jenny Burns on Twitter as well as Mina Hong um, on Twitter. They are bisexual women and they have been like my online friends for years and they stuck by me even through this because they understood where I was coming from. They didn't take personal offense to it. They were like, you were hurt by these people. So I
Right.
understand why you have that mindset, but hopefully, you won't always think that way. They like stuck with me and understood, unlike strangers who were just like launching fire bombs and all that. But so I understand, like, yeah, when something you've done takes off and you get visible and people are like, oh, you need to apologize because of this. Like, I'm glad the guy explained to you why without just saying, like, oh, you trash by. So,
Right.
yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for telling us about yourself, Blotitious. I enjoyed learning stuff about you. Like, I didn't know you wrote a book. So let's get into our next segment. For Nikki, I want to do yes or no for 5 LGBT themed shows.
Hmm.
So a yes or no. So first answer is a yes or no, and then if you want to explain why, you can.
Okay.
Now I'll give my answer too.
All right.
So the first LGBT show is Will and Grace.
No.
Uh, Will and Grace, yes for me the first time through. No for me the second time through.
Oh, okay.
Um, I really, I'm not enjoying the second time through as much as I did the first. I'll say that.
What's different?
I just think them picking up where they left off and moving it a little bit ahead, and also like all the anti-Trump stuff. I'm just like, I get it, but I think they're using a similar formula that they used back then and didn't change it much for today. So I have not enjoyed the show as much.
Okay. I have never watched that show. I felt like it was going to give me an overdose of whiteness that I didn't want. Um, I just was like, is this anything like Friends where they live in a gigantic apartment that nobody can actually afford?
Actually, Will could afford it. He's an attorney, so
Well, excuse me.
yeah. And Grace was an interior designer, so they could afford the life that they were living.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe one day I will watch the show.
Mm. The old ones are good. The new ones, I'm like,
It's on Netflix, right? The old ones.
Hulu. I
Oh,
think Hulu. Yeah.
okay. I'll go back and try to watch a couple episodes, see how I feel.
Yeah. Don't watch it on a 4K TV because my lord, like I'm barely making it through old Golden Girls episodes.
You sound like such a sniper right
the
now. And I love
I
it.
really do sound like it's not, but the resolution is terrible. Like on old shows, you're just like, I can barely make out their faces. But okay. The second show is which one I want to say? Second show, Noah's Ark.
Yes.
Yes, for me too.
I love Noah's Ark.
Yeah, I like what it meant, and as a show overall, and I like the relationship between Alex and Trey.
Mm-hmm.
Trey was the light skinned muscle bound one that was like, I want a Trey in my life, even
Ooh.
though the actor is straight in real life. But um, yeah, I did like the show. Yeah.
I think what I liked about it, well, for one, I've always wanted to see more more queer men on television. I feel like we get wrapped up in seeing like the same gay women on TV. Like we see the same like very like feminine, soft lipstick lesbians, and then we have like a couple of more masculine presenting lesbians. And then you have like this flamboyantly loud, obnoxious gay guy. And
Hi.
yes. And I get tired of it because it's like gay men aren't a monolith. And it kind of frustrates me that, like television and movies kind of make it seem like they are. And I'm like, okay, gay men come in a lot of packages, not just this one. So I think for Noah's Ark, for me, for as a woman, I'm like getting to see different representations of what it looks like. And I have an appreciation for it, but I'm also like, other people can see that gay men don't just come in, covered in glitter and like yelling and hollering and screaming and shouting and singing all the time. It was
Yes. No, go ahead.
how this is how, the actual like LGBTQ community looks. They look like, surprise, regular people.
right. And I have a whole strong opinion about gay guys who are flamboyant and extra and loud and not that way when they're depressed and sad versus those who still are that way when they're depressed and sad. I'm like, so who's acting and who's not? But I'll talk about that at another time. Um, and about how in gay life men seem to want to be a character sometimes versus themselves.
Mm, mm, mm.
But yeah, I'll talk about that on another show. Um, number 3, um, Pose.
I have not watched it yet, but I want to say yes. I want to say yes just based off of what I know.
Okay. Um, I will say yes so far. I'm enjoying the show. I had a couple issues. Like some of the slang they've used is very current and not 1980s. And
Mm.
I just like, I know breakdancing was a thing in New York or whatever, but were people just randomly breakdancing while people were just talking like a few feet over, having a conversation? People just breaking out on the pier, just breakdancing
I
as a
mean,
group.
they do that now, so yeah.
I just, okay, maybe I need to get out more, or needed to get out in the 80s more in New York, but I don't know. I just had a question about that. That bothered me in the scene when I saw it. I'm like, these people just dancing. I'm just like, we could have shot this without the people being there. I'm just like, we'll just have them standing and talking nearby. I was like, it's just like, oh, it's the 80s. Got to make sure it's the 80s because, show breakdancing shows the 80s. Like, we know
You
what
gonna bust
time,
a move while we
we
talk?
know what year it is by the fashions they're wearing and the haircut. Like, so I just had an issue with that. Plus, I was also like tipsy from Pride, but I was just like watching it. I'm like, I have a problem with this. But
It's on my to watch list though,
yeah.
but everything I've seen about Pose so far, I am with it.
Yeah, I'm happy there are so many trans women on the show. One of them is actually trans in real life that I didn't know. Like the rest of them, I'm like, it, how to say like fully passing for a woman versus,
Right.
one of them I did not know. I was like, oh, this is she was born a woman, and it's like, no, she's trans. I'm like, wow, that's great. Like I didn't know, and she's also, I don't. It's a good show. It's just not everybody on it can act. That's all I'm gonna say.
I think that And I thought about that when I saw people talking about it and saying that some of the people who are on the show aren't actually actors.
Right.
I said, if this show gets through a first season, I'm pretty sure there will be more time invested in helping them, you know, capture what it means to
Yes.
act out a role as opposed to just be on a, you know, be on.
Yeah, it's necessary because I'm just like a couple of them. Whenever they recite lines, I'm just like, you're not even. And it's not like I can complain about it as a normal person. I'm like, I'm an actor, so I'm just like,
I can hear you yelling at the
oh my
TV.
God. I'm not acting like I'm like, Tony Award winning or anything. I'm just like, I want it to be like good because the ball scene that they're showing, it probably was glamorous in the 80s for the time, but it didn't have the same lights and lighting of today.
Okay.
So that looks really good to see like present day lighting and lit up, versus the Paris is Burning documentary where like it was glamorous, but it's like you're still very much it's one light on in this huge hall.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm really enjoying it. The battle between the two mothers is entertaining, but I can still see like where the one mother still cares for her, even though she left the house. But and it's like honestly, it's how people should be treating each other and what people had to do to care for each other when they were kicked out by the people who were supposed to be their family. So that's really good. And I'm just interested to see how they're going to handle all this stuff because it looks like they took Paris is Burning and then created a world around that. So, which I'm actually enjoying. So,
Okay.
yeah.
See, I haven't heard it be described that way, and it makes me even more interested to watch it because I really, really, really love Paris is Burning.
Yeah, you got the documentary. They were talking about the ball culture in general, but like this kind of did that. Plus, you go into their lives.
You get to be more in depth because, like, even watching Paris is Burning, like there was certain interviews that they did, and I'm just like, I wonder what happened to her. I want to see like an update on her. What happened to her? Because they don't give you a recap.
No, and I think there's only one person from the documentary who's still alive today.
Right. And I had to look that up on my own.
Right.
So when I was watching it, like I wanted more. I wanted to know more about them because they really only spent a few minutes talking to each person they talked to. So, I had to go and do my own like research and find out that only one person from the documentary was still living. And I just was like, wow, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just so everyone knows, not everybody from Paris is Burning died of AIDS. That was the common misconception. It was like, oh, they all died. No, not everybody died of AIDS. Some died of drug overdoses. Some had heart attacks related to drugs. Some had, I think one did. Some did die from AIDS, and other ones died from other stuff. So not everybody died from AIDS. So just clarifying that. So the fourth LGBT themed show, yes or no, Queer as Folk.
I'm going to say no.
I can't say maybe. So
that's why I said no. Because if I had the choice, I would just be like, in the middle.
I'm gonna say yes because except for like a couple seasons, they were on for what, 6 or 7 seasons? Like a couple seasons, I'm just like, God. I'm gonna say yes because I enjoyed Michael.
Mm-hmm.
I actually enjoyed Brian trying to pretend that he didn't have feelings for Justin. Emmett was my favorite character. He was such a sweetheart. The lesbians, I cannot even remember their names because I always put them together. Mel and it's Mel and somebody tell me. I don't know what the other one's name was, but the blonde one. But they were always like kind of afterthoughts, so I didn't appreciate that about the show. And it treated the lesbians like, gay culture typically treats lesbians. And this one woman said, one lesbian one time I read somewhere, she said lesbianism needs feminism. She's like, because the men are taking over everything, and they weren't even the ones that started.
Right.
So, and she said lesbianism needs feminism, and I'm like, I believe that too. Um, I also have another thing to say that I'll say later because I don't want you to be implicated in what I would say about who else needs feminism. But um, the show, I just had issues with the show with how they treated lesbians. I had issues with the show with the lack of black people, even in, they were set in Pittsburgh.
Mm.
But it wasn't a show about black people. It was a show about, I'll say, mainstream gay culture, and I just they tackled some things well, other things they didn't. That's why I said it's a yes or no. I can't say maybe, so it would be a maybe, but I'll say yes. And the only thing that's saving it from it not being a no for me are Michael and Emmett, or Emmett and Michael, because I love Emmett to this day. I'm like, I would totally date Emmett. But he was such a sweetheart. But
I,
yeah.
I mean, like I said, no, and a lot of it was for the reasons that you kind of had an issue. I just felt like it lacked a bit in representation. It felt almost like a gayness in a vacuum, and I just was like, nah, I'm really not feeling this. There was a couple of different representations of like a unicorn, like having, this one female couple, like that just was a bit much for me. I did appreciate the complexity of the relationship with what was her name? Lindsay. Um,
Was she the blonde one?
that was a lady who she was the mother of Brian's son.
Oh, that. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Um,
Was she the blonde lesbian? Wait a minute.
yes, that's the blonde lady. I had to think about what she looked like. That was Mel's girlfriend.
Yes, Lindsay.
Yeah,
Yes. Okay. Hey, we got her name. Okay.
yes. Uh, Lindsay's like complex relationship with being, Brian's baby mama, Mel's boo thing. Like that was interesting because that's common in a lot of queer relationships. Like I dated someone for a while who he is a trans man, and he was before having reassignment surgery, he had a child with a trans woman who was also before having reassignment surgery. It's always been a very interesting relationship because they weren't in love with each other. They just both wanted to have a child. And they said, look, I trust you to be my child's other parent. Let's do it. And like a lot of, cisgender heterosexual relationships, they don't understand that. So I think where queer as folk kind of irritated me with like the way that they represented, I did like that they showed, especially way back then, they showed the complexity of how some queer relationships can be when you want to have like a family dynamic and have children and stuff like that. Because that's one of the first things hetero people say is, well, what about kids? Well, what if you want to have a baby? Gay people can't have children. Like they always say that stupid shit and it doesn't even make sense.
Number 5. I really thought I started this at anyway. The 5th one is Living Single.
Love
I'm
it.
kidding. That's not a queer show. Like, isn't it? No. Um, okay. The 5th show. Looking, yes or no?
Mm. Hmm. I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say yes.
Really? I'm
Yeah.
gonna say no, but okay.
What? Okay. Um, I say yes because first of all, I appreciated that it was just like a 30-minute show. It was like, bam, here, this is what we have for you. That's it. That's all. Because it seemed like whenever there was like a show that had like queer people on it or was like an LGBT show, um, it was always like long, and it was always a drama, and it was always like, let's do like prime time dramatic, like let's get in our feelings.
Oh my God, like every Netflix show, people are like, oh, watch this show. I'm like, it's 56
It's
minutes.
an hour, right? Like I
It's
don't have a whole
22 episodes. Like I just
I don't have a lot of hours.
right.
I don't have I can give you like I can give you 27 minutes. I got 20.
Right. Like
I think what I liked the most about Looking was the various like the different setups of everybody's life. I think that's what I liked the most about it was you got something different from everyone, where a lot of shows, queer shows and non-queer shows, like you always have this group of people and they all just like make a lot of money and you don't really know what everybody does for real.
I
Um,
I kind of want that to be my life, but
right. And it's like, what do you do for real? Like, I don't know, I'm just
I
here.
just get money.
I just get money and that's it. Like you're not really sure how these people are getting all this money or living this lifestyle that they're living. But like on Looking, it was kind of clear what everybody was doing. I think that's one thing that because it gave me a connection to the characters. But it also was not my favorite show, so it wasn't.
My problem with Looking was that in San Francisco, sure, it can be white, sure. But if you're going to have a minority in San Francisco, where were the Asian people?
Child, you said a word though. You really did. Because San Francisco, it is very white, but it is also very diverse at the same time.
It is. And the most diverse minority there are Asian people in San Francisco.
Yes.
So
And there's a very large gay
there are gay Asians. So, like, yeah, where were they?
yes.
So I was just like, this is another show about white guys hooking up.
Well, that's why it was not renewed for a third season. So
Just- you gotta have diversity because people are tired of. Like I said on Facebook one time, I said I don't think it's a bad thing, but in general, a Republican friend of mine actually told me. She said, in general, people are not putting as much weight on white people's opinions on things.
yeah.
And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It means that other people who have actually lived those experiences are being heard. Because there was a time when, like, unless a white person said it, it wasn't valid.
Very true.
Like my godmother, love her, but my mom was challenged the doctor. Like the doctor was saying something to her when she took her in to be seen. She said something, the doctor was trying not to pay attention. My mom was like, you're going to look at her in her eyes, in her face, and tell her what you just are trying to tell me because she actually is coherent enough to hear it. And when she left, my godmother was like, I can't believe you said that to him. Why? You said that to a white man? My mother's like, and what?
So,
Right.
yeah.
So, yeah, that's our yes and no. So, you get to know what we think about those shows. So, if you have anything you disagree about, go ahead and email. Email will be given at the end of the show.
Don't email me about it though.
Yeah, don't email her. Email me. In political news this week, Donald Trump went to Singapore to meet Kim Jong-un, who is the president of North Korea, which is like a terrible country to live in. He has executed family members when they had the wrong attitude in front of him. The people they're forced to grieve. When his father died, they were forced to grieve. And if anybody was reported not grieving publicly, they were to be thrown into a gulag. So into a prison camp. And an American went to a prison camp and returned blind and deaf. And I think he was unable to walk. And I think he died. So, yeah, it's pretty awful in North Korea. There are reports of people in the northern part of the country resorting to cannibalism because they didn't have any food. People have intestinal worms. It's an epidemic in the country. And Donald Trump met him on the world stage in Singapore and shook his hand with a backdrop of the American flag and North Korean flags closely pressed together beside each other so that I didn't really notice the American flags much. I noticed North Korea's flags because their colors, they color block on their flag bigger than we do. And I was disappointed in the summit for a few reasons. Number one, when President Obama offered to meet Kim Jong-un, Republicans and the right wing, especially Fox News, were saying that he's weak. And President Obama was weak, doesn't know what he's doing. And President Obama was going to have a plan. He was going to research this thing and have people put stuff together to put together something where America would gain something from North Korea that actually had teeth in it. So President Obama offered to do that. And he was called weak and Congress wouldn't approve it. And, they were like, don't do it, don't do it. Trump comes along and it falls into his lap, kind of. And he goes, and I just want to know, who are Trump's people? This is his problem when he doesn't staff the government with the right people. I don't know who his people were because they had nothing. They had nothing to go on. And what we wound up giving was North Korea said they wanted South Korea and the United States to stop playing war games in the sea because they looked at that as a provocation for North Korea. And Trump said, okay, we're going to stop doing that. Didn't tell anyone in South Korea that, mostly the South Korean president or the U.S. commander in South Korea, any of that. They, just announced it. The first paragraph apparently said denuclearization to get North Korea to give up their nukes, which they promised to do several times over the last few decades and have yet to do. So they keep breaking the promise, and like signing some agreement is not going to make him do it. Kim Jong-un is a noted liar as well as Donald Trump. So it's like two liars get in the room. What really happened? Nobody knows. No press was allowed. So the thing that Kim Jong-un signed really has no teeth in it. And Donald Trump really didn't get anything for America in the deal. He's not a great deal maker, as he keeps saying. So I just have a problem with this because the hypocrisy of the right wing supporting Trump over Obama further proves that the only thing the Republicans had against President Obama was his skin color. Like, and it really bothers me when they keep saying no, like his political party, F that. Like, why does his political party matter? If you're now saying, why can't you just celebrate Trump for taking baby steps towards world peace? Why couldn't you do it when Obama proposed it?
The funniest thing about this whole situation to me is how the right leaning or the right wing, the conservative people, they will find something positive to say out of nothing. I mean, they will make up stuff. They will say whatever they have to. And I don't understand it. This man is so nonsensical, but you just remain loyal. It is so bizarre to me to watch these people be so ridiculous. I mean, loudly. They are loudly wrong and they're okay with it. As much as people had been waiting for the summit in Singapore, I was really like floored. I mean, watching people clap, like, I'm like, what are y'all doing? What is even happening? And it makes me feel like I'm crazy. Cause I'm like, I'm watching this entire situation implode and people are acting like it's a good thing. What are we getting out of this?
We get nothing. And he's like, oh, you have to wait to see. Like, no, I don't. I want to know, did you talk to him about human rights abuses? What specifically did you say for denuclearization? What is the plan there? Was it just a general thing that he can sign because he's promised to do it before and won't do it? What? I just. So, my Lord. So, yeah. In other news, the Supreme Court decided that Ohio, their voter disenfranchisement law, where they could purge voters from the rolls, was not unconstitutional, like an appeals court had ruled. So Ohio can go back to purging people from the voter rolls who don't vote or who haven't voted. And it's just a way for Republicans to maintain power, because that's the only way they can maintain power, because their conservative platform doesn't really work in reality and it's not working for people. So if they know people go to the polls and vote, they're going to have to. So instead of them changing their platform to become more modern and, go into the current common age, they decide to just cheat the system and maintain power and do things that really only benefit the super rich.
I think when it comes to like voter suppression or voter disenfranchisement, one thing that I noticed that the other side doesn't think about or talk about, they don't talk about what has happened. They don't talk about actual, like, factual situations of voter fraud. They always have like a hypothetical. It's always a, well, this could happen or this reportedly happened, but they can't actually give you a time when there was some sort of like voter fraud actually happening. It's always hearsay or something made up. And people really will run with that. Like, I saw somebody tweet recently, Twitter is great because you can just wake up and lie and people will believe it.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, that's
all the time.
It's happening on the news. It's happening in newspapers, magazines, everything. Like, these people wake up and just lie. They just tell blatant, bold-faced lies. I remember who was in the news? I think it was Wisconsin. I mean, they suppressed like 200,000 votes.
Yes.
Back in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
200,000. That is a lot of people.
Yeah. That's why Trump won. I mean, Hillary should have been there too, but yeah, that's why he won. It was voter suppression that helped. Yeah.
And it was a very, very large reason why he won, because the voter suppression was heavy. I mean, you got machine tampering, and they admitted that there was tampering, and then nothing was done about it.
Mm-hmm.
Purging voter rolls is something that happens almost every single election cycle, and nobody does anything about it. So you saying that this is wrong and it's illegal, but who is being held accountable?
And these are the first people to talk about how we need to go back to God and, you know, worship God and turn to God. I'm like, God is not mocked. So if y'all keep doing this, he's merciful. He's long suffering. The Bible says it. God is not mocked, but he's long suffering to us. So he's not mocked. He's not going to allow his name to be besmirched like this for much longer.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I mean, you got tornadoes ripping through the Bible Belt more frequently now. So, like, that could increase. Y'all always blame the gays for it, but hey.
Maybe it's the Bible.
Right.
You know, maybe
God is getting fed up. Like,
so. Right. Maybe it's, you know, the folks who do all types of shady stuff in God's name. Like, it's so gross to me to watch people say, well, it's my God-given right to do XYZ. And it's like, no, God didn't give you that right. You don't have that right. And I mean, think about some of the things that we do. I can't imagine having anybody's God stand next to me while I, you know, berate somebody because of the color of their skin or how they live their life or who they love or who they want to vote for. Like, I can't see anybody's God standing there and going, this is totally cool, fam. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not happening. I'm sorry. It's just not. And watching all of the tactics that they use to suppress the votes, I mean, it floors me, because I'm like, y'all go through so much trouble because you scared to lose instead of just being better. Why don't you just be better?
Just be better. Have a better platform. That's it. That's all you gotta do. Just be better.
That's really all you have to do. Do better, be better, and then maybe you have a chance to win. But because you know you suck, I feel like I'm watching Saturday morning cartoons and I'm watching, you know, Wile E. Coyote try to get past the Roadrunner at every mark. Like, that's what this feels like at this point. It's like cat and mouse.
Right. Yep.
And it's like people's lives are on the line. People's livelihood is on the line. The way that people are raising their families is on the line. Like, it's real out here. There's a lot of stuff that these politicians do and say and get away with that affects our lives directly. And I know that we're tired of it. We're jaded. We're sick of talking about it. We're sick of, you know, devising plans and pontificating and shit. I get that. Like, yeah, it's frustrating, but this is affecting our daily lives. It affects our jobs. It affects how we move around. And don't be a Black or brown person. I mean, now we have a whole new host of issues.
Yep.
It's ridiculous. It really is. And
Yeah.
I think it was the last presidential election cycle that I had to explain to people whenever they would say something about how, the arguments that come up on social media about your vote not counting because of the electoral college and things like that. And I had to explain to people if it didn't matter, they would not continue to try to suppress your vote. If your vote did not count, they would not go through all of this trouble.
There's this quote on a Facebook page called Let's Talk About. It's called So Let's Talk About. And it was a great thing about racism. It says, white people are so desperate to assuage themselves of the guilt of being associated with their racist kinfolk that they will jump through all kinds of illogical hoops to see a balanced playing field between extremists on either side. There are definitely Black people who hate white people on sight. I've heard them at cookouts and on the street corner and in my mentions, and that's where they remain. White people who hate Black people run the country. Racist white people are elected officials, police officers, and judges. A few of our uncles saying kill whitey does not compare to white politicians seeking to disenfranchise us, judges sentencing us to prison for longer terms, and cops planting drugs on us or killing us with impunity. The scales are not balanced. Black extremists do not perpetuate the cycle of racism in the United States because they do not have the power to do so. For every single hotep railing against the man or loudmouth crack of this, crack of that uncle, there are 10 racist white people with the power to legally deprive us of life, liberty, or the pursuit of happiness. If you are a tolerant white person who just wants everyone to get along and put aside our differences, stop saying it to us as Black people. The people reacting to racism are in no way comparable to the people enacting that racism in the first place. If you stab me in the neck and I react by cutting your finger with a pocket knife, there is no both sides argument. You tried to kill me. I grasped at whatever I could in anger, defense, and desperation. That's racism in America. White people keep stabbing us in the neck, and their let's get along skin folk want us to put away our pocket knives.
Whew, that was a word.
That was a good way to summarize racism and people who say, like, oh, can't we all just get along? Like, no, we can't, because we're trying to get along. They're the ones they're the ones preventing it from happening. So go talk to them. In gay news, just remembering those 49 people who were taken from us way too soon at Pulse nightclub 2 years ago on June 12th, 2016. I remember getting the news before I went out to DC Pride, and yeah, that kind of put a damper on the whole day and the weekend. But I just want to say that, as I said on Instagram, on the Facebook fan page, the closet is toxic. So the shooter at Pulse nightclub who killed 49 people, who were mostly Black and Latin LGBT people, he reportedly was either gay or bi and couldn't accept it and couldn't feel comfortable being out. He was married. And people who say gay is a sin or whatever, why don't you just stay in the closet? That's what can happen when you stay in the closet. And there are people who say, gay is a sin. And like, why can't gay people just stay in the closet? Well, this is what can happen when you're in the closet. Not that it always gets that bad, but it's just, this is what can happen. So the closet is toxic. The closet prevents you from accepting yourself completely. The closet makes you feel like you're splitting yourself in two. And you can take that out on people in very, very negative ways. So I just want to say to everyone who lost their life at Pulse and those who are mourning and grieving still, you're in my thoughts and prayers. And seriously, you are. And I mean, I send them to you. I say them for you. But I pray that you're getting through this. I know you'll never get over it, but I pray that you get through it. And I just pray that more and more as we grow as a society and culture that we encourage people to accept and own who they are. So something like this does not have to happen again for someone having so much self hatred that they projected on others. I also want to say initially, reports about him being a Muslim and like he wasn't even practicing. And I just want to say, like, as a culture, I don't like that we have so much fear of other people that that's the first thing we jump to try to justify what they've done because they're part of a religion um, from that over the years have had adherents from them violently attack America or American interests, just a small group of them, not the whole group. So if all Muslims were like terrorists, we would all be dead because there's like over 1.3 billion of them in the world. So we would not stand a chance. So they can't be. So what I'm saying is don't allow it's bad enough that he hated himself, but we don't need to compound that hate with more hate for Muslims or brown people, trying to justify it when there is a problem with just overall accepting of gay people in society, which led to this. That's all.
I have very little to add because that was perfect.
Okay.
I'm just I get frustrated when the subject of pulse comes up because I always happen to notice somebody playing like oppression Olympics or they'll say something Islamophobic and I don't like I get ragey. Like I have a really hard time listening to people say stuff that's hateful without being just really disrespectful and talking about their moms and however I can hurt their feelings. That's what I want to do at that time. Um, so I just really hope that the families are finding solace in their mourning. And I'm tired of like these senseless acts of violence for literally no reason. Like there's no reason for a person to ever have to feel like they have to open fire on a group of people. And it's as somebody who like I struggle with mental health issues, I've struggled with my sexuality, I have struggled with, um, coming from a religious background and being afraid to say how I feel or feeling oppressed in some way. I get that. And I've also had mental health issues where I felt suicidal. But I've never been like, I need to take people with me.
Right.
And I feel, kind of insensitive when I say this, but it's if you're suicidal and you really just can't do life and you feel like you need to be free, fam, I feel you and it's fine, but don't take nobody with you because you're taking away their option to want to live.
Yep.
They didn't ask to go with you. If you want some Romeo Juliet shit, by all means, I respect that. But murder suicides, I can't get with it. I hate it.
Another thing I want to talk about for gay topics is how gay men, I feel, have a lot of trauma that we don't process and what it may look like in practice as adults. And this is probably just men in general. And also how Black gay men, in my opinion, are the worst affected by this. And also how apps can help, like dating apps or hookup apps, can help exacerbate the problem if you have a problem with your self esteem. So, um, I just want to say, like, I've discussed this with some Black gay friends of mine, and we were just saying, like, why is it that when you date somebody, that all can seem to go well in the beginning, and then all of a sudden they just flip? So they disappear on you. They make stuff happen that they try to make like your fault for making them feel the way they feel. Like one of my exes actually told me that, like, I don't want anything more to do with you, and this is why. And the reason I don't want to see you anymore is because you were just supposed to be someone around temporarily. You weren't supposed to be someone I got connected to. I dated a guy who told me he had a great time with me on these dates. We went to the symphony. And he actually told me, he said, I had a much better time with you than I thought I would. We went out to eat after. He was having, like, I had never seen him so relaxed and being himself and like playing with his scarf and all that. And he dropped him off at home and he was like, this is, this has been a really nice night. He's like, I usually would invite you in, but I don't want to. He's like, I don't want, he's like, I don't want to like treat you like everyone else. I said, okay. 2 weeks later, we went out again. And I said, why did you disappear? And he's like, well, because in your in my phone, I have your name with a letter beside it. That means I met you online. And typically, with guys online, they fit into a box. So I see them periodically, and we have sex, and they go on about their day, and I go my way. And he said, "But you refuse to stay in your box. You ask me how my day is. You actually care about me." He's like, "I'm not used to that, and I don't know what to do with it." And I said, "Have you considered getting help for it?" He said, "No, I know I need therapy, but I'm content being messed up because I don't want to do the work to get better."
That's really honest of him. But not,
It's
I mean,
honest, but it's so messed up. Like,
it is.
jeez.
It's really messed up, but I'm trying to find the silver lining here. So I
No, I'm
appreciate
okay with no silver lining here. Like,
I appreciate that honesty, but what?
yes. So, like, he kind of told me, like, you're the best guy I've ever dated, but I can't date you anymore because it's, I prefer to be messed up and doing these temporary flings and dealing with guys who don't care about me versus having someone who actually cares about me and takes an interest in me and finds me desirable. I just want to tell people again, therapy is great. Go get some if you can. There are organizations that can even give you free therapy for some sessions. Um, Therapy has really helped me because, like, it helped me enough that when he said that to me, I said, okay, I hear you. I'm out. Before then, I stayed and tried to make it work and tried to make it happen. Whereas therapy taught me, like, it's his problem, not yours. You did all you could do.
Can I just take this opportunity to plug Open Path for just a second?
Sure.
Open Path Collective is a collective of therapists who have agreed to provide in-office or remote treatment for $30 to $50 a session. They also provide couple and family therapy for between $30 and $80 a session. It is $49 to sign up, and it's a lifetime membership for $49. And then you can sort through the therapist by location, gender identity, issues. Like if there's a specific issue that's plaguing you, if it's sex or sexuality or relationships or professional or whatever might be, nagging at you the most, you can like check that box and it'll find somebody whose specialty is one of the things that you need. I use Open Path Collective to find my therapist. They are in compliance with HIPAA, the American Counseling Association, the Foundation for Excellence in Mental Health, and the International Society for Mental Health Online. Use it. openpathcollective.org.
Thank you.
I was not paid for that. I really love it. My therapist is actually a trans Black woman, and I found her on Open Path, and she is absolutely amazing.
My therapist is a straight man. He is gay accepting. And he's the one who told me I don't define myself by my sexuality because my sexuality comes, after me.
Right. Like you're just a man who just happens to be gay.
Yeah. And granted, gay life is, part of my life, but it's not all I am. So that helped get my perspective together. But if anyone wants to know who he is, I recommend him. He is a Christian counselor, but he doesn't he's not going to throw the Bible at you. He ain't never thrown it at me. But I can give you his information if you email me, and the email will be given at the end of the show. He is in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, and the Maryland area. In Christian news, there's an article I read. It was talking about how Christianity is dying in America. And I put dying in quotes. They didn't. I put dying in quotes. And I honestly feel it's about time. Like 100%, I feel it's about time because, like, the reason that people feel Christianity is dying and, leaving the faith and not calling themselves Christians anymore is because of the Christian right and Jerry Falwell linking conservative politics to Christianity. So these group of people have now become what's called evangelicals, even though there's an article about who is actually reading the Bible and living by the Bible, and it's Black Christians. It's not these evangelicals who are white people who are voting for Donald Trump. So um, if Christianity is indeed dying in America, I fully support this. I'm fully supporting it because I don't think it's dying because that the word of God will never die. But um I feel that the way the faith has been hijacked is dying, and I'm completely okay with that. Because honestly, I don't think Christianity should have a political ideology with it. Jesus Christ is the King of Kings. He's over all governments ever established. He's above this. So I don't think we should be linking liberalism or conservatism to Christianity. It should just be Christianity, and we should just do it as Jesus said we should. And this does not mean that you're voting conservatively or being a good conservative Republican Christian. What the heck is that? Like, that doesn't matter. So, I just have a question about this to Trump supporters who are Christians and Trump supporters of all races and ethnicities, not just white ones. I just want to ask, who are you worshiping? Because I'm not so sure it's Jesus anymore. I think you may think you're worshiping Jesus, but how you live and how you vote shows that you're more worshiping, especially if you're a Trump supporter. I think you're worshiping white privilege and white supremacy. I don't think you're worshiping Jesus as much anymore. So that being said, I fully support what they said about Christianity dying in America, and I'm saddened that it has come to um, conservative politics hijacking the faith for people to be done with Christianity. And because a lot of people say they're done, and I'm like, you're still a Christian, you still believe in Jesus, you accept him as your savior. You're over the church, you're over American
this
church.
morning say, I don't believe in Jesus anymore.
Right. You don't do that's not how it works. So I will say, like, I don't know if you're worshiping Jesus anymore because I, anything like Donald Trump has said he has never asked for forgiveness from God because he does not feel he's ever done anything that requires forgiveness. So, being a Christian means that you acknowledge you're a sinner and in need of saving grace by Jesus' shed blood on the cross and belief that God raised him from the dead. So, I don't understand how you let him get away with that and say, like, and fool you into saying that he's a Christian when President Obama said the sacrifice of Jesus coming to earth as a baby, living as a man, living the life he lived the way he did, dying for his sins before Barack Obama was even thought about, rising from the dead so he'll live with him forever. That spoke to him on a personal level of love and sacrifice that he accepted Jesus as his savior and Jeremiah Walker's church. So I don't understand how President Obama can say that, which is the same testimony many of you give. And then Trump says what he says, and you're like, well, I support Trump. I believe him. Like, but President Obama has been a secret Muslim all this time. Like, and then like you're now just I welcome the death of American Christianity. I really do. I think it's time for a renaissance in Christianity in America to get back to what it's supposed to be and get separated from politics because your politics should have never been conflated with your faith ever. It's one of the fastest ways to poison your witness and poison the faith in America. And this is why Christians look stupid supporting Donald Trump, because everything he stands for is kind of just awfulness and sin. And you're there supporting him simply because he's not a black, or I'm sorry, half black president.
So, as I'm listening to what you're saying, I'm trying to, I feel like the devil doesn't need an advocate. So I don't ever like to say, oh, I'm playing devil's advocate. But I do try to look at things from a varying perspective, or from a way that maybe I didn't consider previously. And that brought me to this. Your belief or disbelief in Christ, your religious stance, however you have a relationship with the Lord, however you do that is your business. But I feel like your faith is a very large part of who you are. And I feel like however you act out your faith, however you present your faith, whatever it is that you believe in, no matter, the religion or the deity that you pray to, if your faith is strong and it matters to you, and even the slightest bit, it's going to have bearing on who you are as a person. So when I look at people who say that they are Christians and that they are, God-fearing people, and I watch them do hateful things like Trump supporters do, like, I just want to be a fly on the wall when they're supposed to be worshiping. Like, are you going to church? Are you reading your Bible? Are you praying? What are you doing that's even remotely Christian? Like, let's be honest here. We have sat here for over a year and watched these people, literally be radicalized before our eyes. And it is the most bizarre thing I've ever witnessed. Watching them grow more and more bold when they say things that are Islamophobic, racist, sexist, classist, etc. Watching poor people in the middle of the country say that they support Donald Trump because he's a good businessman. Y'all poor. He not here for you.
As he's
As he's sending your jobs away and
just like, well,
cutting any assistance that you were receiving. But you still cheerleading for him, and he cut your SNAP benefits, and he cut your welfare check, and he cutting your Medicaid. Like, it doesn't make sense to me how you can say you're a follower of Christ, or that you are a God-fearing person, or that you are religious, or that you love the Lord, and then you don't exhibit any of that because of your political affiliation. It's like, where is the integrity in your religious belief? If you can say out your mouth, I'm a God-fearing, if I say I'm a God-fearing Black woman, but there's absolutely nothing that you do that suggests that that's a true statement. It is just outrageously bizarre to me. As you're talking, I'm thinking about how these people do the verb of life. And there's so many things that they do and say that are really hateful. And I just think it's funny how, majority of these people are white. And they get upset with us. And why you gotta make it a race thing? We're just observing.
I fully support the death of American Christianity as it is now, if it's going to be reborn into what it should be. Okay, now we're going to talk about our bum of the week and our boo of the week. So, bum of the week, standing bum of the week, as always, is Donald Trump. So, this week and a half alone, he's done some real bum things. So, first we have this Singapore summit where he legitimized Kim Jong-un. Again, he promised to denuclearize several times already and has not done it. Donald Trump also alienated our actual allies. He has set up a new federal office that will look at taking away citizenship from naturalized immigrants. That is the goal of that is the goal of the Trump administration, by the way, to get rid of all immigrants in the country. That's the goal. So they're doing this by setting up an office that will look at people who they claim snuck in through natural citizenship, naturalization process. And so I just am like, are you going to kick out Melania and her parents? Because isn't that kind of what they did? But Donald Trump also said the NFL players should take a pardon to talk to him about who they want pardoned from the criminal justice system, because he pardoned Dinesh D'Souza this week or last week, who is a terrible Indian man who's a conservative who wishes he was white, and Alice Jones, who was, nonviolent drug offense. She was in jail for a very long time and, sentenced to stay more, but he commuted her, or no, he granted her clemency and she was released, but her record is still not clear, like unlike Dinesh's, which is clear because he's loyal to Trump. So Kim Kardashian went on Alice Jones' behalf and talked to Donald Trump and got her to get out of jail. But like, did Kim do it for everybody else or just one person, and tell Trump about the overall problem? But he seems to only be concerned with, if you stroke his ego, he'll do you a favor, but not for the fixing it in an actual systemic problem. And what else did he do? He alienated us from the rest of the G6, and he is now beefing with Canada, and now has strengthened border restrictions in the north against Canada.
It's a hot mess.
This is a lot for him in a week. Like,
it is.
And I love his economist who was lying about what Canada did economically and then turned around and had a heart attack. It's like, yeah, lying will really take it out of you. So he's fine, but he had a heart attack. It's like, well, stop lying. So Trump has done a lot. So that's one. I don't even know if anybody else did anything that was real bummy this week. Do you know anyone?
Not really. Dennis Rodman, kind of. But other than that, no. Because he was like, oh, my talks with North Korea. And he's like crying and he's got like caked on Fenty Beauty on his face. It just was a hot mess. But yeah, like, no, like this was an exceptionally weird week.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't know. I have no other bum nominations who's done as much crap as Donald Trump did. So I guess bum of the week this week is the standing bum of the week, which is Donald Trump. However, my boo of the week is everybody else who was at the G7 summit who had to tolerate Donald Trump trying to get Russia back into the group and walking away saying, we don't mind being the G6. This is really sad for America. Angela Merkel is like about done. And so the free world will be soon led by like Canada and France and Germany and who else is in it? South Korea.
That's a mess. That's a mess. It really is. And I hope.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the UK, and the United States. So minus the United States soon, maybe, because we're being run by a man who just wants to watch the world burn as he enriches himself. My heroes this week, the boos of the week, are everyone else from Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, and the UK. I don't even like Theresa May that much in the UK prime minister, but like they're going to try to run the world because we're being led by somebody who is getting cozy with North Korea and Russia and abandoning everyone else. Like, how are his supporters not seeing the problem? So that's my booze of the week. Trying to hold the world together. I always support that. Nikki?
Oh my goodness. That was quite the rundown. And I'm sad because I feel like we're watching the world burn. And there isn't a whole lot we can do about it. And I really just hope, as you know, primary season is very quickly approaching for many people in the country. Midterms are in November. Please register to vote right now. Figure out who you're voting for. and figure out why. Look at where people are on the issues, because this is awful and it's going to affect us for a long time. And it's stuff that is affecting us right away. Like sometimes politicians can make these decisions and it's like, oh, we got a while for that. We'll be fine. We can prepare. But it's like he makes decisions about things that are going on currently that affect us right away. Just give him bum of the year and get it over with.
Yeah, like just every week, like I said, I scream mentally twice a week that people actually voted for him and are shocked. This is what pissed me off. Y'all are shocked that he's doing what he said he's going to do. I just thought he was going to say that because people say stuff to get elected all the time. People do say stuff to get elected all the time, but they say stuff that's in their platform and they try to do it. The only thing stopping them is Congress. So if you have a Congress that doesn't have a backbone, because Republicans apparently have lost their backbone unless a black man's in office, I don't understand how you're shocked that he's doing this. That's all, because he said he was going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And he has such an ego that he would not be happy unless he attempted to do it. And if you butter him up and stroke his back and say, like, you're the best guy ever, he'll do whatever you want him to do.
Correct.
Once again, this is Jamie with Keene Point of View, the best intersection of gay issues, politics, and Christianity ever. Thank you for joining me this week. And thank you for also joining me, Blotitious, Nikki. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I loved having you here. And everyone, please, if you like this podcast, feel free to share it with everyone you know who will enjoy it and subscribe to it. Please subscribe. Also, feel free to contact me at keenepointofview@gmail.com. Keene is spelled Keene, pointofview@gmail.com. Also on Twitter and Instagram, the handle is at Keene POV, Keene POV. And the Facebook fan page is facebook.com/Keene POV. Blog is keenepointofview.com, and email again to get in contact with me is keenepointofview@gmail.com. Again, I want to do some read mail eventually, so feel free to write and ask questions, and I'll be able to answer them on the show once I read them. So, music this week is provided by Ace, Dizzy Flow, and Google. Thanks again for joining in. And Blotitious is at Blotitious, BLOWTICIOUS on Twitter. And her website and Instagram for her art again are
society6.com/Blotitious and Instagram at Indigo Gloves.
Thank you. Thanks for listening, everyone. Take care.